people, and welcome. In today's video, we're going to be doing, I believe, 2 examples on how to write column proofs for a triangle using the side, side, side reasoning. Again, as always, I am human, so if you catch a mistake, I do apologize. Just let me know where the mistake occurs so that way we both can learn from my mistake. Before we begin with our examples, I want you to head over to the column proofs for triangle congruency video. I will link that down below. If you have not seen that video, I highly recommend that video. It goes over every single step you need to take in order to be successful at writing a column proof. Now, that video doesn't include all of the combinations you could possibly have, but it is a great starting point to writing column proofs. I will be referring to that video, so if you have not watched that video, go ahead and pause this one, scroll down, click on the link, and then once you're done watching that video, come back to this one. All right, let's get started with example number 1. So in example number 1, you have 2 triangles like such, and you have your given information. Given information are J, K, segment, are congruent to segment NM, comma, K is the midpoint of J, N, and LM. That is your given information. Then they are asking you to prove that triangle JKL is congruent to triangle NKM. Now, the way I want you guys to watch my videos always is as soon as you have an example written down, pause the video, try to do the example on your own, then unpause the video and maybe see if you can catch a mistake of mine and then make it a game. I don't want you to just copy things down without actually thinking them through. So please, as soon as I label this image here, pause the video and then try to prove this on your own. But before you pause the video, you do need to know what your triangle name is. So you have triangle JKL and then you have triangle NKM. So this is an M. Okay, now pause the video, try to prove this on your own, and then I will see you back whenever you're ready. All right, again, I'm going to be referring to the steps recorded in the previous video. Step number 1 is we're going to do our column. We have statements here. We have our reasons. Step number 2 is the first statement and reason are the ones that are given. So statement, you're going to look here. Here's your given. Your given are the statements. So here's your first statement. Here's your second. It's always good to separate your given information with the commas they provide. So we have 2 given statements. How do we know your reasons are always going to be given? If you get the information from them. See, given. Again, so what are our 2 statements? The first statement that they tell us is that segment JK is congruent to segment NM. Second statement that they tell us is K is the midpoint. I'm going to abbreviate midpoint by MP of segment JN and segment LM. That's step number 2. We're done. Step number 3 is mark up your image with the given information. Okay, so here's our given information. JK is congruent to NM. So JK is congruent to NM and M. Oh, excuse me. And I made a big typo. Oh, I'm glad I caught that because that didn't make sense. That's why you should always write in pencil, you guys. This should be JL. Let's correct that. And if that was confusing you, if I told you to pause the video and try this problem on your own, and you were just not, working things out, it wasn't working for you, I do apologize, but I'm happy I caught my mistake. So this should be segment JL is congruent to NM. And that makes more sense. JL is congruent to NM. That makes a lot more sense. Okay, next thing they tell us is K is the midpoint. So K is the midpoint. Don't let it confuse you with this M. Let's do MP. Of JN. So where's our JN? Here's our JN. And it is our midpoint of LM. Okay, so if you go back to that video, you're going to notice that on step number 4, you're going to want to notice keywords. So some of the keywords you're going to be looking for are things like midpoint. Whenever you see midpoint, that is a keyword that should kind of be thrown at you, red flag, glitter in your face type of situation. Midpoint is one of those very fancy words. And what midpoint means is that you're technically taking the segment of whatever segment you have, and if you have a midpoint, you're cutting that segment in half, equally in half. So when you have two little pieces that are equal, those two little pieces are congruent. So if you have the midpoint of JN, here's J, here's N, and this is the middle, we cut the yellow one in half, that means that JK, this little piece and this little piece, are equal in measure. Before we get too far, let's write that down. So step number 3, I now know that segment JK, that little piece, is congruent to segment KN because I took it and I cut it in half by the midpoint. So one thing that you're going to notice is anytime you have keyword midpoint, your next reason is going to be definition, and I'm going to abbreviate definition by writing defin of midpoint. Now I use the definition of midpoint for JN, but I still have the midpoint of LM. So let's go back to our image. Here's LM. I try to make it pink for you guys. I'm not sure if the color is showing up here. So you have this segment, LM. It gets cut in half by this K, which means I equally cut this big piece into two smaller pieces. Therefore, LK is exactly the same measurement as KM. So going back to my proof, LK segment is congruent to segment KM. How do I know? Again, we got that information from the definition of midpoint. Now I am using the definition of midpoint twice because they give us two segments that are being cut in half, JN and LM. Now I'm looking at my image and I'm noticing that I already have 3 pieces of information. Let's see if all 3 pieces of our information can give us a proof, a reason, a final reason. So I'm looking at step number 6. I'm looking at step number 6 in our previous video, and we're going to end the proof, but we need to make sure we have enough information. 3 is the minimum information that you need. So what is this? This is a side. What is this? This is a side, and this is a side. So that's side, side, side on one triangle. We need side, side, side on the other triangle, and we do have that. So our very last statement is always going to be this here. This is always going to be your last statement. And the number that statement is doesn't matter as long as it's the last thing on your statement side And you're literally, I am just copying. I'm not really doing much thinking here. I am taking and copying it. This is where I do a little bit more thinking, but I've already done that thinking because I already labeled what I have. I have a side, 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 and I have a side, side, side. Therefore, why are these two triangles the same? Because of side, side, side congruence. You can write congruence here. I choose not to because mathematicians are lazy and I don't want to write that. And that's it. You can write QED here, put a little box, depending on what your teacher, you can do one or the other. You don't have to do both. I don't require either. If you stop writing, that means you're done with your proof. And that's one example. Let's do one more example for your side, side, side congruence. And again, as soon as I'm done writing the question, I highly recommend you pausing the video, trying it on your own, and then unpause it to see if I make a mistake. All right, example 2, you have given segment AC is congruent to segment AD, comma, segment CB is congruent to segment DB. We want to prove that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle ABD. Now you cannot do much unless you have their picture. Now my picture obviously doesn't look like those two are going to be congruent, but hopefully you can draw yours that looks a little bit prettier. Again, I am human, I am not a computer, so my sketches are going to be a little bit off. All right, and what do we need? We need to know the labeling. This is A, this is C, this is B, and this is D. Again, at this point, pause the video, try to do the proof on your own, but we will continue. As always, step number 1, T-chart, statement, reasons. Step number 2, copy and paste your two givens. Those are your easy points. You don't have to think too much about this. Ooh, this is 1. This is 2. How do you know this information? It is given to you. Whatever is separated by a comma, you give it its own number. Step number 3 is mark up your image. Okay, so what do I have? Segment AC is congruent to segment AD, AC, AD. Segment CB is congruent to DB, CB, DB. Okay. There's no keywords here. I don't have midpoint here, so there's nothing there. I also am looking at my picture to see if anything jumps out, and in fact, something does jump out. I'm noticing that both triangles have this segment here, which again should be a red flag. Glitter in your face. It's that important. Okay. What does this mean? I know I have the same side twice, so I know that AB is exactly the same as AB. How do I know that? Step 3, it is because, if you go back to the other video, it's called the reflexive property. Okay, so then I know that these two, it's the same thing. So again, 3 pieces of information. I have side, 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 side. So I know that I have side, 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 congruence, triangles. And my last statement is always going to be this here. I'm going to take it, I'm going to copy it down here. Triangle ABC is congruent to triangle ABD, QED, or little box, so you are done. All right, guys, this wraps up this video for our 2 examples for side, side, side triangle congruence. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. If you caught a mistake, I apologize. There was that one mistake in the beginning, and again, I apologize for that. As always, thank you so much for watching my videos. Like, share, subscribe, put the little notification bell thingy. You know what to do. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye.